Welcome to the Game Changing Work Show, also known as the GCW Show, where myself, Veronica, and Roxana are your hosts, where the Game Changing Work Show is all about changing the game of the workplace. And so, where science and outcome based systems are helping organizations with achieving and fostering organizational intelligence and high performance. And so today we have an awesome topic today where we're going to be talking with Quanta and some really cool stuff I'm excited about in relation to organized intelligence and the black box method. So, Roxana, you want to
Yeah.
kick this off?
Yeah, let's kick this off because we have a lot to say today and a lot to cover, interesting stuff. So, as you were mentioning, we're talking about a game changing method, the Quanta Black Box Method, when it comes to organizational intelligence. And we have our two guests actually who are back with us today. So it's good to have you back, John Raddall, founder and director of Quanta Consulting, and also Michelle Hoffman, who is a partner and consultant with Quanta Consulting. So welcome and thanks for joining us again. Super excited to have you here.
Great pleasure.
Thank you.
And all right, so let's kick it off. What can you tell us a little bit about what Quanta does before we start?
Yeah, sure. Michelle, do you want to kick off or should I kick off?
I think you can kick off, John. You'll be the only man around here, so why don't you do it? Do something.
Make the most of it while I can. Okay. Yeah, great. Hello, everyone. For us, the work that we do is really exciting and we think it's a little bit different. Just a very brief background so you know why we do what we do. Years gone by, 20 odd years ago, I was in the strategy game and I was director of strategy in an international consultancy. And the one thing as a game changer, we started to realize that we'd produce all these big reports and do all these big projects in large organizations in airlines and retail industries and insurance industries and so on. And we'd go through all these meetings, all these documents and all these nice big piles of whatever. And you go back 6 months later and nothing has happened. So what we realized is that the elephant in the room with consulting generally was that real change was not actually happening either in leaders or teams or organizations. So this became our obsession to create practical methods that actually work to really change the organization so that it will change their performance. So that's just the brief background to what we do and our passion for what we do.
All right. So, because you said that you started to develop a method around measuring organization intelligence. Why is this important for organizations today?
Well, that's a really great question. And, you know, we all know that the problems that organizations are having, whether it's the lifespan of organizations, which is declining every year, whether it's the quality of leadership, you know, everyone's leaving their jobs and they're not coming back and so on. And most people are complaining about the quality of their boss. And there are all sorts of things. We also know that all the money spent on training and development, the analysis shows that it has no real impact in organizations. So we know that if you're really going to have an impact in an organization, you have to be able to measure something that actually matters in the system, and you have to be able to do something that change that which matters in the system. And that's the route that we've taken. So we always talk about a system. So we don't sort of isolate a leader or a team and say, let's look at the whole system. And what we've discovered over the years is that every organization has its own level of intelligence. And we measure this intelligence through measuring what we call energy and so on. The detail is not too important now. But what matters is that every organization develops an energy level which has an equilibrium. And that equilibrium determines its performance, not the strategy, not the latest training program. It's the energy level. So if an organization is sitting at, say, in our language, 55%, we know that it's not in the game. It can't compete. So what happens, and this is the crisis that we think that we're addressing with you, that we want to discuss in the black box, and this is the real challenge. So an organization gets into trouble. The share price drops, sales drop, margins drop, whatever it is, and somebody says, oh, we need transformation. Nobody knows what they're really talking about, but they need to change something. and, and so what we're saying is if the energy of the system is 55%, they can only implement 55%. So if a 100-meter sprinter can only do 12 seconds, he's not going to do 11 or 10 unless he changes his diet and his fitness and so on. So what we've discovered is that the performance of an organization is determined primarily by the system energy level, not by the strategy, not by the C-suite, not by anything else. So if the organization wants to be more competitive, it has to change the basic DNA and energy of the system. And that's the key for us. So we're saying we have a way of measuring this. So this goes back. It's sort of a deeper foundation, if you like. We have a way of measuring what this energy is in a system so we can predict exactly what it can and can't do. And we know, we've spoken before that up to 90% or more of so-called transformations fail. I know it's difficult to measure them. We think it might even be higher because most of the transformations require an energy level above the current system energy level. It's that basic. It's that concrete. You can only perform at the energy level that your system has. You can't perform beyond it. So if you want to perform beyond it, you have to raise the energy level. And that's where the black box comes from. So our whole methodology that we've been using for over 20 years is developing the tools and the processes to do that. And we have lots of case studies where we've been getting good results and so on. So that's really the essence of what we do.
I love where we're going next when it comes to what is this black box method. I'm so excited as we're diving into this in relation to what you just said about transformations. We all have our ideas about it and how it fails, but this black box method, this is where we're excited to go through this today, is what it is. And let's start with that, of this game changer for leadership development.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I would suggest you pop up the black box slide if you like. And then I think Michelle, who's the real wizard on the assessment side and using the black box tools and methods and so on. So she might like to sort of introduce the comments around the black box. That's wonderful. Michelle, are you happy to tell us a little bit about the basic tools inside the black box and what it's all about?
Sure. So if you have a look at that image, you'll see we measure the inputs. So this we do by looking at the assessments. So we have the 3 assessments. The one is the GC index, which measures the potential of leaders and teams. The other is the organization assessment, which measures the energy that John was talking about and the DNA of the system. And those, as a beginning test in an organization, are very, very key to understand exactly what is happening. So we don't just walk in and say, okay, here's our toolbox and start implementing. We look, we unpack, we examine the DNA, we understand where the leaders are impacting the system, and we then can deep dive into the organization and start implementing our black box solutions. And we do have a 360 as well, which is another measurement, but that we don't do right up front unless we're looking at doing 360s on specific people. But the initial deep dive into the system looks at those 2 elements. And then the black box, what we do is once we've understood the system, once we understand what we actually need to do in the organization, then we start working with leaders and teams. And our processes don't say, or our methodology doesn't just say, okay, C-suite or leaders need to go and do something with the system. We involve everybody in the organization. So we work with different levels. We work with the leadership team, and then we work with the teams and their teams below. So everybody becomes engaged in the process of doing this transformation and change. And I mean, what we found, and I found in all the work that I've done, the more you engage people and use their brains, the more impact you're going to have. And then your transformations will change. If you just dump something on somebody and say, go and do it, because generally HR says, here's our next tool set, so go and implement, you're not going to get the buy-in. So for us, it's about getting the buy-in from everybody. And the black box measures the toolkit that we use with the teams looks at the system. So we'll look at their energy levels. We'll look at their potential. We'll look at the energy level of the system. We'll decide where the energy levels need to be, and we'll discuss this more when we have our webinar. But basically, we look at where do you want to be in the future, and if you want to be 75%, we say start acting like you're 75% now, today. You don't have to wait for 6 months. You start behaving now. So you start engendering the change right now. And that's the methodology that we start implementing. So we look at the system, we explain people systems. We've got various technologies or methods of action. So it's not just a ethereal kind of thinking where we'll give you a book to read. There's our systems are based around action and doing things today that are going to start increasingly make a difference tomorrow. And then at the end of the processes, we look at doing a reassessment so we can see exactly what has shifted. And the exciting thing about this is that with getting everybody involved in the process, magic begins to happen, and changes that are completely unexpected or unanticipated start to happen. And the exciting thing is because everybody says, okay, well, what is your return on investment? And we've had many different elements, but mostly we have return of investments of about 1,000% on the investment of the interventions. So this isn't just a fluffy up in the air toolkit that we implement. It is directly linked to your productivity, your profitability, and it's outcome based, and you're getting a great return on investment. John, do you want to add anything to that?
That's up to Roxana. If she'd like a little more detail now, it's up to
I
her.
was thinking actually, as Michelle was talking, and because I know that some of the people who are with us live said that it's a little bit difficult to get into all of the details on what we're showing on the screen. So I was wondering, when you're talking about measuring the level of energy, maybe you can give an example of some of the stuff that you've done and what you've measured, and then what happened and how that actually worked for some of the teams or the organizations that you use this with, just as an example to understand better of how this works in practice.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a system that we work with. So if we just look at the organization energy, what we did with this particular organization, it was a call center. It's a sales call center. And I know you probably can't see too much of the detail on the graph, but the organization energy measures an entire system. And we look at various categories. Important categories are leadership. Well, they're all important, but the leadership in our language and in all the work we've done says that leadership is the driver of the energy in the organization. So if you've got high energy leadership, you're going to have a high energy organization. So everybody in the organization completes a questionnaire, or in this department. So everybody in the system completed the assessment. We then process it, and this is where we get the results. So we rank the results, and we get various snapshots, like this snapshot that you can see here, where we have the overall score, which is about 56%. Now, in our language and with all the work we've done over the last few decades, 56% is a problem in the system. You're going to have politics. You're going to have unhappy people. You're going to have low productivity. Your sales are not going to be great. management is not going to be trusted. And we know one of the key things is if you trust your managers, you'll do anything for them. But if there's lack of trust, you're not going to get what you want. People are going to leave. It can become a very toxic environment to work in. So in this particular case, we started working with this organization. We had a 6-month project. We started with this assessment. And if you look at the ranked results, I'll just show you the last bottom 2 is about leadership and your climate. So leadership was 42% and climate, I can't actually see the result there. I'll tell you now. Leadership is 47 and climate is 50%. Now, what that does to a system is chronic. And in this particular case, what we did is we showed everybody, because everybody in the system who completes the questionnaire will get the results. It doesn't sit with the managers, it sits with everybody, so everybody becomes part of the process. And once we started working with them, we started working with the management, and we started working with the managers and their teams in the different departments. And we had some brilliant results where over 6 months, we went from 56% to 70% energy. Now, the biggest shifts were leadership, which went from 47 to 71%. So what happens is that the leaders start doing something differently. As I said earlier, people start becoming engaged in coming up with a solution. So they ask the people in the call center, what are your issues? And they started working on the issues that emerged from the processes. New processes got implemented. People started having fun together. So one of the actions that they put together as an entire team was on Fridays. They would either dress up, all the different cultures would bring food, so they'd have lunch together and start engaging and building this human capital of people actually engaging and talking to each other. And the days that they had those fun days, they actually sold more than any other day of the week. So again, you start having fun. The more fun you have, the more productive you are. And over 6 months, this is what happened. They went from 56 to 70%. And if we have a look, the percentage shifts. Oh, the screen has gone berserk. I don't know why we've got that here. The leadership went up by 49%. System energy up by 24%. And your climate, which how happy people are in the organization, went up by 26%. Plus, we had 1,000% return on the project investment, which in dollars is about $50 million per annum increase in sales based on the results and the work that we did. So that's in essence what we did, and we will continue and to go into in more detail in the webinar going forward.
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot in store where we'll do a deep dive. People will be able to ask their questions more. And we'll share that at the end of the segment. I'm kind of curious is how did you come about creating this unique solution? So we talked about the why Quanta, but how did you get here to create such a game-changing solution? There had to have been something where this evolution took place.
That's an excellent question. I guess from my side, I've always been interested in science, probably from early childhood. So if I look at the books that I have on my shelf around me here, I would say 80% of them are more about science and the universe and everything else, and very few books about leadership and managerial things, because I don't think those books are nearly as smart as the science books. So what I will add is that as game changers, we've always been interested in things that work. So if you want to change somebody's behavior, for example, how do you do it? Now, it's our view that 99% of the literature on leadership and behavior change is interesting but not useful. So, you can read every day comments about leadership. We must be nice to people, nice to kittens, nice to children, love everybody or whatever. But even if that was true, it never comes with a set of instructions on how to change. So we found that when people are under pressure, they tend to go back to their default behavior. And that's why we've been obsessed about this. So I won't go into the detail here, other than to say we have a unique method for changing behavior that is based not on wishful thinking, but based on scientific method, which looks at the whole process of evolution. Now, I'm not talking about biological evolution, that's a separate discussion. But we have pursued with various people around the world the whole concept of so-called cultural evolution. Now, culture itself is a complicated subject. But what we're saying is we've developed and practiced and used a method for changing behavior in a sustainable way. Now, what Michelle has been talking about here is based on our method of changing behavior. And we think it's probably pretty unique worldwide. So we've combined unique measurement with unique method. So we're not part of that school that says, what would you like to do next week? And let's talk about it and maybe we can come up with something. Our approach is purely systemic. We always look at the system. We want to know what the energy of the system is. And we know from practice that the only way to change the energy of the system is to change the behavior of the leaders. There's no other way. Or you can boot the leaders out and change the leaders. So we've got two methods. So our method is to show leaders how to change their behavior in a sustainable way. And we think this is hopefully opening up a completely new market, particularly now with COVID and all the nonsense that everybody works at home. And now everybody's realized what I've been saying for years, that organizations don't really exist. They're invisible. So now we can all see they're invisible because we sit and stare at each other on computers. So we think the market now is wide open for real change. We can't just use the old methods anymore. They weren't working, and now they're really not working. So it needs a reformation, a revolution in how to change behavior and structure leadership as a practical activity, not as a theoretical activity or a philosophy. It's a practical activity, and we'll link it all to science and to evolution, because evolution is all about action. It's not about theory, and it's not about thinking. It's about action. So our method will show you, we sometimes talk about the time machine. We'll show you that there is a time machine we're all part of, and it's 13 billion years old, but you can have control over your own evolution and your team and your organization's evolution going into the future by applying the principles that we've developed and used with people. So we're very excited about it, and we're really looking forward to sharing all of this with you in a little bit more detail in the future webinar.
And I prompted our caption there, Roxana, as you probably ask your next curious question about it.
Yeah, but I think John already answered a lot of that, and you were talking, both Michelle and John, you were talking about getting buy-in from your teams and your people, building that trust, building that level of motivation and engagement, which we know that all of the leaders out there are asking, how can we do that? How can we increase that? And we talk a lot about the great resignation and the level of motivation and engagement that is so low in most of the organizations today has a lot to do with increasing the numbers of the great resignation. So I think when you say this is needed today because we're changing behavior and we're measuring what behaviors need to be changed, and we're actually helping change that behavior, that's a huge return on investment. And I think this has been the issue coming from a learning and development world. This has been the issue in all of the organizations so far. So especially today, when we think about change and transformation, you said something, John, that I would love for you to develop a little bit. Getting back control, because I think this is what all of the people in, especially leaders, but not just mid-management as well, they feel they've lost. They have that sense of losing control. So getting back control, how does that help them in feeling that they get back some of that control?
This is such an important question. there are one or two elements, if we make this as concrete as possible. I would say that organizations generally, because of their equilibrium level, they learn to resist change. And we'll explain this in terms of rules and meta rules. But for the purpose of this discussion, let's assume that an organization has an established DNA and an established energy level. Then what happens is all the work goes into maintaining the DNA and maintaining the energy level. Now, most people, I'm sure, have heard the term game changer and strategist and so on. Now, if you look in organizations, the game changers are the people, the mavericks, the rebels. These are the ones that sometimes have their heads chopped off in French revolutions, maybe, or elsewhere. But these are the people who look around the corner. So your Elon Musk, your Steve Jobs, and you name them. Those are the people who make the real changes happen. Now, what's happened is the whole business landscape has been shifting for actually a few decades, but now dramatically in the last 2 years. Now, in an organization, the number of game changers, they say, is 5% or less. Now, it's only the game changers who look around the corner and explore possibilities. So 95% of employees from the C-suite down have been selected, they're paid and retained to not change. They don't know how to. So now the issue of control is they're losing control because there's the tsunami, the landscape's moved. And they're saying, what the hell? I've never had to change before. Not really. Now I actually have to learn what John and Michelle are saying. I need to learn to evolve. And I don't know what that means either. So they don't know how to change. So we're not here to remove their stress. We couldn't care less if they fall off the bus. We care if they can learn how to change the game. That's what we're interested in. Because if they can't learn to change the game, they're going to get in the way and their company's not going to survive. So the issue of control is a very important one. And I would say the game changers need to be identified in organizations. And the strategists and implementers who don't really are not turned on by the changing the game need to work together to explore possibilities. And we'll talk more about this in the future. Organizations do not, generally speaking, have the DNA to explore possibilities. They can talk
well
it,
said.
can't do it. So we're interested in how to do it.
Yeah, great question and answer. And we're going to explore deeper into that as I know that our wonderful time together is starting to come to an end in our time box here. And I wanted all of you to thank you that have joined us today. All those curious questions. If you're watching the replay or watching us live, we do look at the comments. Oh, we lost Michelle there.
Yeah.
We look at the comments and looking to see if there's, what kind of curious questions you have about this. We know it's different. Hey, we know it's game changing. And so we expect more questions to come. And this is why, folks, we are having February 23rd, how to maximize organizational potential and diving deeper into the Black Box Method. So we're going to have more time and more bag of goodies for everyone there. So we're going to go ahead and drop that short URL in the comments for all of you to get. And again, we're going to post that also. We'll have it in the LinkedIn platform and other social platforms for you to register as well. But we wanted to introduce that right now, right here live on our show. So please sign up if you're interested in learning more. This is going to be a great webinar, learning more about the Black Box Method. Now, as we close up, what's next on the show? Our next show is going to be, I don't even think we have a caption all right for it, but I'll just say we're going to continue on our next show. Look at add here is organizational intelligence. That's our theme. And so what we do is we expand many different topics around there. And so our next one is going to be February 2nd, folks. And we are gearing up for an interesting topic. And then maybe we might have a special guest. Now, those of you that might not be aware, we have a game-changing work LinkedIn page. Roxanne and I are diligently working to get our website spun up, with our consortium of lovely collaborating partners like Quanta that are really wanting to change the game out there. And so we're going to have a lot of goodies coming soon, folks. But subscribe to our LinkedIn. You'll always know what's going on. Or I should say follow. That's the proper term. And then subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is where we have all our live episodes recorded as well. So again, webinar. You can't miss this, folks. February 23rd, and it'll be on how to maximize organizational potential, Black Box Method. You see the URL there. We dropped it in the comments if you're looking for it. And if you still can't find it, you know how to find Roxanne and myself. So come look for us. And thank you so much, everyone that has come to learn about the Black Box Method today. And it looks like Michelle is back.
Yes.
To say goodbye, folks.
Right on time to say goodbye, Michelle. But it's like the beauty of a live show.
So again, drop your questions in. Let's see. I think we might have had someone. So it looks like we have definitely some questions to ask senior management. So please, gather your questions. Come ready. We're really going to go on that deep dive in the webinar and be able to get those questions answered and learn more.
I know. Yeah, exactly. And I know that Michelle and John also have a case study that we will be discussing in the webinar. So you're getting a lot of information. This is game-changing stuff, folks. That's why we're sharing it, and we're happy that you're so curious to find out more. So come join us. Click on the link. We'll put all of the links to the webinar in our feeds, in our comments, so you can register and join us. This is going to be game-changing.
Yep. So webinar, going over more in detail, some extra goodies, case studies, question time, you name it. We might even have a special takeaway. You never know what game changers might come up at the last minute. That's the truth. So we're highly creative folks here. Tune in next time, February 2nd. Oh, John, do you have a takeaway message?
Quick one. Fundamental to the game changer is talk is cheap and money buys the whiskey. So everybody who comes to the webinar will get a takeaway that can change the rest of their lives forever.
Ooh, I like it. Look at that, folks. So, yep. So there are going to be some goodies for you. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us, and always challenging the status quo and trying to change the game. See you, everyone.
See you.
Cheers, everyone.